All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to honor everybody's time. We'll let others kind of trickle in. Welcome to class 9. We are almost there, pretty much the home stretch. Today, we're going to go over what to expect when expecting an audit. Um, So first thing is each farm operation will perform a self audit. So this is something that is on the dashboard side of Heavy Connect. And it's basically a series of questions that kind of gets you ready for a regular audit. It is something that's on the checklist. It's not mandatory, but we encourage everyone to take advantage of this and kind of just get themselves familiar with what kind of questions might be asked and what things and paperwork needs to be in order. Um, then something to know is everybody will receive one internal audit every year, and that is from somebody that is on the North Shore EVP team. So it will not be the person that directly works with you and has helped you do your risk assessment and your farm plan. It will not be that person. It's going to be somebody else that doesn't know much about your operation at all. We'll go in and do that audit. We use the same exact checklist as the USDA auditors. So we use same checklist. Once we complete our audit, we submit that to the USDA. And then we will perform a follow-up audit if necessary. So if there are some corrective actions, then you'll schedule out a date and you'll work with your North Shore EVP member to pick an implementation date for your corrective actions. And then that same North Shore EVP auditor will do the follow-up audit. Um, Typically, the follow-up audit is done remotely unless we need to come back to the farm and observe something. Other than that, there is an unannounced audit. The unannounced audit is also done remotely, and it's pretty much just a record check, farm plan check, paperwork check type of thing. No need to come onto the farm for these ones. And although it's called unannounced, we do give you guys a couple days notice just to let you know, hey, we're going to be, diving into your stuff to do an unannounced audit. So practicing the flow of the audit provides familiarity with the order of criteria in the checklist. So your farm food safety plan will mirror this as closely as possible. Understanding the documents needed to support each criteria. So you'll want to know where these things are located, what part of the farm plan, your SOPs, your records. You yourself as the farmer, just you want to know where all of these things are located, not just your North Shore EVP member. And then also just reduces anxiety and increases your confidence in your responses for your audit. So touching again on self audits, like I mentioned, they're non-mandatory, but it's a good way to just get familiar with the audit process and how I'm sorry, it must be done annually, yep, by an assigned individual. And the required corrective actions must be documented. So how you address the corrective actions will be in your written farm plan. And then someone from our team can assist you with preparation for the self audit, and we can kind of run you through it for your first time around too, to make sure you feel comfortable completing it. Internal audits, again, so it's done one time a year typically. Um, and internal audits are done by a person who has completed the USDA auditor training and the standard that the group is working under. For us, it's harmonized GAAP. And so everybody on the North Shore EVP team has taken this training. The internal audit is a formal process. It is documented on the audit checklist. And if corrective actions are required, you will need to fill out a corrective action report and specify a timeline for when the criteria will be met. So basically, when you're back into compliance. Again, your North Shore EVP member will help you with this. Typically, we hold a virtual meeting to go over any corrective actions and kind of come up with a game plan. and set a good timeline of when works best for you, when the corrective action could be turned into to compliance. So here we just have some examples of what the checklist looks like. This one's handwritten, so I guess it's a little trickier to read. But over here on the left is just basic information about the farm and your auditor. And then over here on the right, this is what the actual checklist looks like. As you can see, all of these are, there's a dot under the man, so meaning mandatory. And these ones here are all marked compliant. Whenever there is an NA marked here, so not applicable, there needs to be a comment. So if this is checked NA on your audit report, you can expect to see a comment in this section of, why it's non applicable. And then what if there is a corrective action needed? That's a can right here. So no big deal, really. Nothing to stress about. Pretty much everything can be fixed. There's always a solution. There's always multiple solutions usually. It's really not the end of the world to receive a corrective action. Actually, most audits will end with at least one corrective action. I think it's pretty rare to go through an audit and there just be zero corrective actions. It doesn't really happen. So corrective actions, they're normal, they're necessary. It's a good way to learn. So if you do have a can marked, there's going to be a comment on why that was marked. And then again, you'll work with your North Shore EVP member to figure out, okay, what's the game plan here? What's the best way to fix this? And let's see. So steps we take if there is a corrective action needed. The can on the checklist and to fill out the corrective action report. So this right here is the corrective action report, which is separate from the checklist. This happens at the end, and this just shows each corrective action will have its own page here. There will be a description of the nonconformity, and then down here at the bottom, the next little paragraph is going to be how you plan on fixing it and include the date of when it's going to be fixed by. So there will be one of these for each corrective action. So if you've got 4, then you're going to have 4 separate pages, and it'll be all laid out here. And let's see. The corrections will be verified in the follow-up audit. So again, this is something that's done remotely by that same person that did the internal audit. And if the can is unresolved, the farm may not be certified and may eventually be suspended. So if it continues to be a corrective action, if no one's taking charge on getting it fixed, if you remain non-compliant, then okay, you're not going to get your certification, or you may be suspended from the program.
Okay, I think this is me now. So I'm going to talk just through the next couple of slides and talk about what happens when we actually have a USDA audit that occurs in the group. So if you guys remember the way that GroupGAP works, everyone, as Ingrid just said, everyone in the group gets internal audits, and we do supply those reports to USDA, so they will review those. But really the difference between GroupGAP and the way that any other GAP works is it does allow for a smaller number of farms in the group to have this audit with a USDA representative. So that we like because it streamlines the process and keeps our costs down, and it helps us help more people at one time. This one is always one that brings up a lot of questions. People get very nervous about having USDA come. And so just want to go through how this part works and where it's similar, where it's different than the internal audits that you'll experience with us. So first thing, it's commonly referred to as the third-party audit. So there's a third body, an entity, which is USDA, who will be performing this audit. For us and across the country as well, typically there's a state Department of Agriculture branch that has some folks there who do these audits. Here in Hawaii, it's called the Quality Assurance Branch, and they are within our HDOA, our Hawaii Department of Ag. They are trained in the audit standard just like we are. So oftentimes we attend the same refresher trainings, in fact. So that is the person typically that's going to come out and do these third-party or USDA audits. Occasionally, we may be lucky enough to have someone from USDA, from the Ag Marketing Services branch come. That has happened a few times as well. But usually it's going to be somebody local. The audits will be set up every year. Typically what happens is we supply our list to USDA. They take a look at the number of farms because that's a key piece of the equation. So they look at the number of farms we have in our group, the number of farms we have here in Hawaii that are participating, and they'll take a look at internal audit reports from this year and from last year, kind of decide, okay, here's some folks we haven't seen yet, we haven't visited, so we're going to select those. It is supposed to be random, but I think that they do kind of try to work around to every operation in the group before they repeat anybody. So they'll choose those farms, they'll review the records, and they'll let us know who's going to be visited that year. So if that happens for your operation, every year a few of our operations get this call that they have been chosen. We will work with you to prepare for that, just like we would for any other audit. And it'll be a little bit different process. So typically when you have an internal audit with us, it's kind of informal. We know you guys, even if we're not your lead, we are still aware of a lot of what goes on in your operation. In this process, probably the auditor is not someone you've interacted with before or not very frequently. So the way that this rolls out is that there will be a couple set pieces. One is the intro. So the auditor will introduce themselves to you when they arrive at the farm. What you want to do is make sure that you introduce yourself and anybody from your team there that day. And also, this serves to make sure that the auditor is at the right farm. They're verifying the names of the people that they're interviewing and that the company name is correct. That's for their documentation. So super important part of the process here. Usually in Hawaii, it's we're talking story a little bit because we are all usually knowledgeable of each other. But what you want to do when you have this particular audit is remember that you want to provide this auditor with information about your visitor policy, where your restrooms are, any other policies that you would typically let a visitor know about. So you want to treat the auditor as if they are any other visitor to your farm. Let them know about the policies and show them where things are. Don't take for granted that they're going to ask about it or that they might know where it is. You want to treat them as if they don't. The auditor will also have a standard set of documents that they need to go over. So they will want to sit down and review that as the very kind of first part of the process. And this is called the opening meeting. They will make sure, again, that they have the correct name and address of your operation, because, again, this is all going to go on their documentation. They'll tell you about the confidentiality around this audit, that there is an appeals and disputes process, and what will happen if you don't pass your audit. They may also have a cost estimate for us. And in that case, that's just letting us know what this audit bill is going to look like. That is not for you guys to worry about. In GroupGAP, you guys all pay your annual fee, and that's that. We use those annual fees to pay the cost of the audits. So if that cost estimate gets brought out, don't worry about it. That's not something that you're going to be invoiced for. So as you're thinking, if you do get this call, or when you get this call to have your USDA audit, a couple things that we want to think about and that we'll be working through with you as well. First thing is there's going to be at least a need for a quick sit down at the beginning and at the end. So we want to make sure that there's a comfortable spot for everyone to sit down briefly, allow the auditor to have a place to lay out their documents, etc. Doesn't really matter whether it's outside or inside, as long as everyone's comfortable. Of course, having a table is great if that's possible. If you've got a break area that has a table in it, that can be used. If you've got a table maybe in an office, that can be used. Whatever works best. We've even used the back of a truck before, so that's totally fine. Just want to make sure that we are all comfortable and have a place to lay out documents and write things down. You want to think about who's going to attend with you. We will certainly be present. One person, at least from our team, will be present, and that's to sort of be an advocate for you and for this process as we work through it with an auditor. Also, it's a good opportunity for us to learn. We like to know what the auditors are keying in on, what they're looking at, where there's differences in opinions, so that those are things we can file away and tackle for later. If you have someone on your team who is really knowledgeable about the Farm Food Safety Plan, about your records, you want to have that person there too. If that person is you, great. If it's someone else, you want to pull them in for this because they're going to want to talk to the auditor. Typically, people ask about how long is this going to take, and it really depends on organization, not just our organization, but also the auditor who is coming. The more preparation that auditor does, if they read your farm plan ahead of time, if they look through the records, we give them access to certain things in Heavy Connect, then this audit typically can be completed in a shorter period of time. We have had them be as short as a little less than 2 hours, honestly, and we've had them extend up to 5 hours. So it just really depends on organization, as well as the size of the operation. If you have a large operation and it's complex, maybe it's a harvest in the field and a packing house, that's certainly going to take a little more time than a simple right there in the field, everything is field packed situation. One thing we want to make sure is that you're comfortable with what the auditor is going to ask of you, what they want to see or do with you. So the first thing, documentation-wise, that they're going to want to see, of course, is your Farm Food Safety Plan. That's going to lay out basically all the information that they need to know about your operation and the procedures. They're going to view your records, so we will give them a login to your Heavy Connect account that restricts them to just the records that are needed for this procedure. They're not going to have access to everything in your Heavy Connect. And then we're also going to want to make sure that they are aware of where to find any folders that might contain training records, licenses that you might have, your pesticide license, for example, if you attended the Produce Safety Alliance grower training, things like that. So we're going to make sure that we compile those and that they're well organized for the auditor to look at. One huge piece of the audit is observations. So there's a lot that can be done ahead of time and marked off if it's written procedures, an assessment, things like that. But there are some things on that checklist that really can't be assessed unless the auditor can see them happening. So a good example of that is the harvest. They're going to want to watch what people do when they come in and out of the restroom, or have they washed their hands. They're going to want to see your restroom. So things like that are what they're going to be looking for. To touch on some specifics here, the restroom, they will go in there and they will turn on the water and they will check for towels and they will look at your soap and they will look at your trash can. They are not going to skip over that. So be aware. Make sure your restroom cleaning logs are up to date, but please make sure that your restroom is in proper working order. I have been on an audit where an auditor went in, turned on the water, and it didn't work. So that's a big, huge red flag. So just know they are going to go check on things. They will look at your storage area. They're going to want to look to see that your pesticides, your fertilizers, et cetera, are stored as it is laid out in your farm plan. They may want to compare what's on the list with what's actually present. They may even also want to look at how you're arranging your items, because they want to be sure that you can clean in between and that there's no pest harborage. And then the last thing, the biggest piece typically, is the harvest procedure. They are going to want to see an actual harvest. So one thing that we really stress is when we get the list of farms that will be chosen for the third-party audit, we're going to contact you and we're going to find out, what's a good time for an auditor to come so that they can see a harvest. We don't want to set up something that's not a real life scenario. So not a mock harvest, not a sample harvest. They need to see the real thing. Of course, at that point, when you know that this is going to happen, you want to make sure you take one last look at your farm plan, make sure every procedure that we've written in there about harvesting matches what is happening in the harvest. Because if not, that's going to be some things that the auditor will touch on. Know that the auditor will talk to your workers. So they will ask questions. And part of that is to ensure that what workers are doing or planning to do if an event occurs is what's written in the farm plan. Some common questions that they ask, they'll ask about what would happen if you cut yourself while you were harvesting or while you were packing produce. So you're going to expect that your workers can answer that question based on what procedure is written in your farm plan. Sometimes they'll ask things about locations. Where is the first aid kit located? Where's your chemical storage located? So things like that. What are your cleaning procedures? How do you typically do this? So just be aware that these are typical questions. Don't be surprised if they do start asking someone other than you some questions about the operation. While the audit is going on, I think the most important thing is just to try to de-stress yourself. It's your operation. You know what is supposed to be happening there. The auditor is asking you those questions. Answer confidently. Try to breathe and take deep breaths and be calm. So you already know what's going to happen. It's really just being able to answer the questions that the auditor is going to be asking you. And they're not trying to trip you up. They're really just trying to make sure that there's alignment with what's happening and what's written in your farm plan. As the audit closes down, the auditor may ask for some time to kind of look at their notes. Sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. And then they're going to sit down with you and anybody from your team that you'd like to be there, and they're going to hold what's called a closing meeting. They're going to kind of go over again what they went over at the beginning. So operation name, everybody's names, make sure all of that is properly documented. And then they're going to kind of give you an overview of their findings. They can't tell you whether you passed or not at that moment because every audit is going to be reviewed by another auditor at USDA, but you'll have a pretty good sense of whether you have some corrective actions and what they are. So that's fine. Like Ingrid said, we always expect corrective actions to happen. It's not a big deal. Nothing is ever perfect, and we're always looking for continuous improvement. But knowing that as we complete the audit is really helpful because that, again, helps us know what are they keying in on, where are the places where we can do a better job at assisting you. So you'll have a pretty good idea of where you stand. Typically, you'll get that final result a few weeks later. And I think I'm going to hand it back to Ingrid for this.
All right, guys. So again, this is just an overview of what the app provides and what the dashboard provides. So on the app, this is where you're going to be completing your daily records. It's used in the field. You can add corrective actions and pictures here on the app, and you can add notes providing additional detail on the records. Over here on the dashboard side, it gives you an overview of the completed logs and alerts to any issues. On the dashboard side, we can edit and add new logs. The dashboard, we hold your binder, which has records, certificates, farm plan, water tests, all sorts of documents. This is where the auditor will go to actually view your records during an audit. And the North Shore EVP team checks this each week. So this is kind of how we monitor and make sure everybody's on track. So for this weekly looker reports, there is a way to go onto the dashboard, and if you completed a record and you want to add additional information or change something, we can do that, and we can also talk you through that. So if this comes up for you and you want to go in and edit a record or add a note to something, just reach out to your North Shore EVP member and we can help you do that. So good records aren't always marked good. We want to see realistic records. So it's okay if you got flagged for something. We really just want to see that answers are being
answer to in the correct way and what's actually happening on the farm or what you actually saw. So no, it's all right if you get flagged again. We can see that, and if it looks like it's something worth noting or talking about, we can reach out to you to get more information. But no big deal if you get flagged for something that you marked. We just want to see that the records are realistic. And then so this is kind of just a screenshot of a series of records. You can see the date is from April 25th to the 30th. So just a few days, and they've got 25 records total. So this looks really, really nice. This is what we want to see. We want to see lots of good records in there. And this is just just showing you guys that this is what we look at and what we see and kind of what we want to see. But if you're not on the farm every day, or you're not there on the weekends, or if you're at school and you take a break, that's okay too. So this is what it looks like to have just a few records in there. Both are fine. Both are okay. If you're there, if the farm is open and operating, we want to see some good records in there. Okay, so at the time of the audit, no log means it didn't happen. Records are everything. Records are proof that you're following your SOPs, that you're following your farm plan, that you're implementing all these things, you're cleaning, you're sanitizing, you're marking everything that needs to be marked and updated and recorded. So this is kind of just a nice visual to see what needs to be done. So the blue here is daily. So your restroom and daily log, daily GAP log, those need to be completed daily whenever the farm's open and operating, cleaning and sanitizing. If you're doing post-harvest, maybe your refrigerator temp log. Green, this happens whenever the activity is happening. So whenever you're harvesting or training an employee, a visitor comes, you're adding pesticides or fertilizer, whatever it may be, that is just recorded as needed. Purple is just depending on the individual farm plan and the standard operating procedures. So like a greenhouse inspection, if there's a major update to your farm, you'll fill that log out. The water delivery system assessment, that's done annually. So these are more the records that are done annually or on an as needed basis. And then here in the orange, your mock recall and traceability, that's done once a year. So again, just a nice visual to kind of see an overview of, when things should be completed and how often you should be reporting. This is a screenshot of what is in your binders, and this is a clickable link. So if you guys are checking out this slideshow at home, you can go back and click this, and it kind of just lists out all the different sorts of documents that we're going to keep in your binders. So just a really nice place to house everything and keep it really organized and streamlined, making it super easy for an auditor to gather whatever information they need to gather, whatever documents they need to look at. It's all right here in one place, which is really nice. And it kind of just helps everything be more efficient. And then wrapping it up. So this is pretty much it. The final thing to do is your course assessments. So this will be released Friday, and you guys will have about 5 days to complete it. So it can be completed on your own time. And then next week when we meet, we will go over any questions, or if we see a question that's been marked wrong, across the board for multiple people, then we might want to talk about that and address that if there needs to be some more information or, just needs further discussion. So it's going to be a good Q&A session next week, but be sure to complete the course assessment before class. And then other than that, just turn in any missing homework if you've got it. At this point, your risk assessment should have been completed. If not, I'm sure that it is scheduled. And then, of course, staying up on your records, because I believe your first internal audit, I think we said June, right, Lisa? Around sometime in June, we'll start doing some internal audits. So by time June comes around, there should be a good amount of records in your Heavy Connect account, so we are able to actually do an audit. And that's pretty much it. This is what your beautiful certificate will look like at the end once everybody passes their audits. Unfortunately, the USDA does take forever to get these out. That's out of our control though. But this is yeah, this is just what it'll look like. So
Funny
any question? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we found out today, I never knew this in all the years we've been doing this, that they make these certificates by hand. I don't know why they do it that way, but it is a manual process. So that is part of the reason it takes so long.
Yes. They need to come up with a better system. They need to just be generated. Like it's 2025. So any questions or concerns? Okay, well, if you guys think of any questions, feel free to shoot us an email or a text. Reach out to us with those. Or if not, you can always bring it to next class and we can discuss them as a group. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Feeling
you.
more confident. Love that. Thanks. Yep. Have a good one.